Hi everyone, my name is Courtney and welcome back to my channel. And today I'm going to be doing a book review of Cleat by Mira Wilson. So Mira Wilson writes Sapphic adult rom-coms. I believe this is her third or fourth book, so she is very seasoned at this point. But this is my first book of hers, and so I thought it would be fun to discuss it from that viewpoint because it ended up being a pretty solid read for me, but there was also a lot of things that I felt like this novel misstepped on. So I thought, why not add my 2 cents to this? So this book is an adult sapphic romance novel. We are following Grace Henderson, who is the star of the soccer world and her specific soccer team. She is the team's captain on this New Orleans team. She has been in the pro soccer world since she was 16 and now she is 26. She is very reserved, very type A, very serious, and she does not want to trust anybody, and she also does not want to let anybody in on the fact that she is injured. And then we have 22 recent college graduate Phoebe, who is a hopeful for the USA soccer team, as well as joining Grace's team as the new rookie. Phoebe is very much focused on trying to succeed in her dreams, but she's also just very bubbly, very all over the place kind of a person. And so there is a little bit of clashing between Grace and Phoebe, just because they are very different people in communication styles and outlooks on life. They are also kind of pulled into each other's dynamics, and at the 30% mark of this book, if that's a spoiler for you, they decide to have a friends with benefits situation. So this book succeeds in a couple ways for me. It's flirty, it's fun, it's sexy. If you're looking for a book with smut, this does have that. If you're looking for like the black cat, golden retriever sunshine energy, it does have that as well. And I also really enjoyed how both of these characters have their own things that they're dealing with, their own internal journeys. They have family stuff that's going on, so it makes them feel like very full, fleshed out people that have their own story and not just their romance to deal with. If you're looking for a book that has lesbian characters that say the word lesbian, this book has that. If you're looking for not just a sports book, but a book that has queer community, this book has that. This book also has trans and non-binary side characters. This book also deals a little bit with ADHD and autism rep. Both of these characters are kind of discovering that towards the end of the novel, but I feel like from their symptoms throughout the novel, it's very clear that they are experiencing those things. And there also is not quite a huge taboo relationship, but there is a little bit of a power dynamic because, you know, you have Phoebe, who's like the rookie, and Grace, who is like a seasoned veteran and also the team captain, but there's not a giant age gap. It's 26 and 22. This book also has a New Orleans setting, and the New Orleans setting is used by the characters to go and do stuff, and this relationship is also between, I guess it would depend what you consider femme. I would consider like long-haired masks or like kind of tomboyish presentations for both of these characters. Like, yes, they are femme with the long hair, but they definitely have like a more tomboy air to them. So if that is something you're looking for, there is that as well in here. But the ways that this novel did not work for me, it just felt like there was a lot of stuff going on for both of the characters, which is what I like, but it just wasn't successful in delivering all those complications. It felt like there needed to be just a little bit more focus in each of the girls' journeys and stories. But overall, enjoyable, fun, flirty. I would recommend this, and I'm interested to check out the rest of this author's backlist titles. But if you have not read this book and want to, I would leave now. If you want to hear me yap about my problems or mixed feelings on this book, stay around because that's what we're going to do now. So incoming spoiler alerts. So when I talk about this book having too many things going on, let me just kind of lay out what's happening. So Grace's main things is that she's a very private person. She can't trust anybody because of a complicated past with a very specific person who's still in the soccer world, and her reserved nature and her possible autism makes her very awkward, and a lot of times she just misses a lot of social cues. She also has that injury that she does not want to talk about. She does not want it to get out, and that injury is wrapped up in these feelings of not liking soccer anymore, not feeling connected to the world of soccer, but also feeling like she's aging out of it, like her body is like decaying around her and that she can't be in this world anymore. So she like loves soccer, but she like also feels disconnected from it. She wants to be a soccer player, but also like the complicated feelings of maybe this isn't the right path for her anymore. And then Phoebe has like this need to prove herself. She has her ADHD problems, which are a really big factor in this book. She's never on time to anything, and she can just kind of be seen as annoying, intrusive, and very eager to a lot of other people, which results in a lot of miscommunication, especially between her and Grace. And then in the last 75% of this novel, she had anger issues and like like kind of this weird outburst on the field with this coach. So you have both of those girls dealing with their internal stuff that I just talked about. And then there's their miscommunication, which is kind of the whole premise of their relationship. Their situationship is obviously a big part of their plot line. The will they, won't they, will they continue to be friends with benefits? Will they get out of that situation? Are they still in that situation kind of a deal? And then again, randomly at the end, their coach ends up being like a problem. Like the coach just never wants to try anything different, and maybe these girls aren't in the right positions. And then Phoebe having her first game is like having a really weird thing with the coach and with her position. And that just kind of comes out of nowhere. I don't think there was any build up to the coach at all. So on one point, I'm like, I like that there's all these problems that these characters are dealing with. I like that they have the family issues and their personal issues and the issues with the team. It makes them really dynamic. It makes the book really fun. And one of the things that I think works about the miscommunication between them and the situationship is that it really makes the book ebb and flow very differently than a traditional 3-act novel. So instead of having like a 3rd-act breakup, there's kind of these mini moments of breakup between them throughout this novel. There's kind of back and forth between them, if they're going to have this relationship, if they're not. And so while there is kind of a 3rd-act breakup, it just feels less important or less of this big deal because it's just one of the other blow-ups that they've had up to this point. And so there's kind of like a realness to it, and there's kind of a very dynamic energy to that. But again, it also made the novel feel a little bit structureless, and it kind of made the journeys of these two characters feel very disjointed. I thought Grace's story was a lot more focused. It seemed that all of her issues kind of came together in a really successful way where it felt like they were all interacting with each other. But Phoebe's journey, I felt like needed a lot more work. If we saw her kind of pushing against the coach more in the beginning, if we saw that her wanting to prove herself, wanting to be the best, pushing against that coach, if that was more of a thing throughout the entire novel, the 3rd-act blow up would have made a lot more sense for her, and it would have made her journey just feel a little bit more complete. Also, how that story wraps up with her, in some ways it felt good because it was like just the opening of her fixing things, the kind of idea that she's gonna go out and kind of address these problems, but at the end, leaving it open also made it feel like the journey was incomplete in some ways. So that was like my biggest issue with the novel, is that the structure was interesting, but it also created problems for the characters' personal journeys. The other big issues I was having, besides like the structure and the weirdness at the 75 to 85% mark with the Phoebe anger story, is that at 30% in this novel, they start the friends with benefits relationship, and it just seemed a little bit out of nowhere. Grace has kind of been flip-flopping with Phoebe up until this point, but when she decides to flip the switch into a sexual relationship, it just felt a little bit out of nowhere for her, a little bit out of character. It just felt like I needed some kind of explanation as to why she was deciding to do this now and why she was okay doing it now. Those were kind of my biggest problems, but I will say, like, I'm talking like these are real people. I feel like I really understood who the characters were. I really enjoyed the characters personally. Again, I felt like this novel was fun and dynamic. I really was looking forward to reading it every day. So it felt very solid as a book, but also like there are things that I liked and things that I didn't like. So when I went to Goodreads to look up why people weren't liking this novel, I came away with a couple things. A lot of people thought this was very interior, that there was a lot of monologuing. To me, the monologuing felt really true to Grace's character. She's very serious, she's very internal, she very much overthinks everything, so I thought that worked for her. Maybe less so for Phoebe, but again, if you're gonna have one character being very internal, you kind of need the other character to do it as well, or else it'll feel very misplaced. But again, because Grace is so internal and so reflective of everything, thinking about everything, her journey felt much more explained in the text, whereas Grace's didn't. But if you don't like the characters talking about everything, you would rather see the story unfolding, showing versus telling, maybe that isn't going to work for you. I didn't think there was a show versus tell problem because there was a lot going on in the text itself as well as the characters thinking about things, but I could see where someone would not enjoy that. Other people felt like Grace wasn't consistent as a character. She kind of flip-flopped around and would kind of change to fit the different conflicts of the story. Again, this is something I saw especially at that 30% mark of the novel where she kind of flip-flopped. I felt like she was pretty consistent throughout the novel, but I could see why her misunderstanding stuff, her miscommunication could feel very much just to drive the plot forward. But I will say that her miscommunication, her not understanding that her and Phoebe are in a relationship, it never resulted in a very big blow up like I thought it was going to, so I'm very thankful for that. People thought that Phoebe was just kind of annoying. I feel like that fits her character. She's the bubbly, overexcited, overeager person. It worked for me, maybe not for other people. The other thing people were not enjoying was the dirty talk. They thought it was kind of cringy. Yeah, I could see that. I did a mixed reading of this book. I was reading it and listening to audiobook, and I will say when the audiobook got to those scenes, I was like, maybe I should read this. I don't want to have it read to me. I don't know. I am very forgiving of sapphics in relationships, so I don't mind a little bit of dirty talk, but if you don't like that, don't read this book, because again, there are very on-page scenes and they're pretty graphic, like not anywhere near an AO3 graphic level, but like they're in detail, and yeah, there is dirty talk. The other thing that this book wanted, along with the interiorness of the characters, is more talking communication between the characters. I could see that. I could see a book where miscommunication isn't the big factor in this novel and they kind of talk with each other more. I could see that. I could see where that would be helpful. Maybe that would iron out some of the problems I had. So, interesting suggestion from Goodreads. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't. But the last suggestion I think does have a lot of merit. So, Cleat Cute. It's fun, it's sexy, it's not going to give you a full sports story, but it gives you enough. And there's good points about this novel, there's bad points. If you're very sensitive to different characters, i.e. you get annoyed by characters, definitely give the first chapter a read, see how you feel. But otherwise, this is a really fun novel, really enjoyable. I had a lot of fun with it, and I do want to check out the backlist of this author and kind of just get a bigger feel of her work and her style. But yeah, that is my review of Cleat Cute. Let me know if you've read it, if you're planning on reading it now. Your thoughts on it are always appreciated in the comments. Likes, subscribes, again, always appreciated. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later, and happy reading!